Hey, this is Wayne Forte from Entourage Talent in New York, and I'll be a guest on Promoter 101 at Pollstar Live. Come on down and see us.
I'm Dan Steinberg, and welcome to episode 15 of Promoter 101. We have scored the Supermensch, Shep Gordon, this week as our feature interview. I'm so excited for this one. How about you, Luke?
I cannot wait to hear that interview, Dan. I'm still kicking myself that I skipped out on the Maui trip this year. I'm sure it was epic. But let's get kicked off in the news of the week.
Let's start with some big news of the week. We've got a new president, and he even threw a concert to prove it. Did you watch any of those performances this week, Luke? I mean, we're talking about Toby Keith, Three Doors Down, frontmen of the country, the piano guys.
Nope. Did you?
Nah. Let's move on.
I will comment that this is a reported $200 million affair for the inauguration, a bulk of which is, of course, the massive security team. But still, $200 million. That's insane. I don't want to represent that we think that's $200 million bill to the taxpayer, because reportedly $100 million was raised by Trump supporters.
C3 continues to grow the brand of Lollapalooza by announcing this week that they're going to Paris, July 22 and 23. Topping the festival this year, the Chili Peppers, Imagine Dragons, and The Weeknd, on top of a lot of great other acts.
And C3's parent company, Live Nation, continues their acquisition mode. Last week, we talked about their purchase of Latitude 38's Bottle Rock Festival, and this week, we're talking about the merger of UK concert promoter Metropolis Music and Boise-based firm CT Touring.
That's Creston Thornton's company in Boise, who used to be Bravo Entertainment and owned the Big Easies, and clearly two different acquisitions. But this should be really interesting to see what Creston does now that he's part of the Live Nation team. Anyway, in the touring news, Radiohead announced dates for North America and the UK, and Drake's postponing dates again, this time in Europe.
Eli Young Band had a massive fire on their band's tour bus last week, destroying their entire bus, the trailer, and all of the gear from Morris Haim inside of it. Their driver was making a haul from Texas to Minnesota and had pulled over in Kansas to refuel and rest. He was asleep when a generator fire started and fortunately was able to escape safely without injury. Glad to hear everyone's okay.
You know, I got to tell you, my favorite thing about being at an Eli Young Band show is people that are trying to get backstage that don't realize Eli Young is two people. They think it's one guy. I always love that. That's my favorite part of that band. I'm glad those guys are okay, though. Paul McCartney is suing Sony to retain the rights of the Beatles catalog, or some of the Beatles catalog, that is. At some point, we need to get a lawyer on the podcast, Luke, so we can talk about these things and actually know what the fuck we're talking about, huh?
I'll say. From all the articles I've read, it seems that this is a setup for Paul to really try to regain his rights in 2018 when songs like Love Me Do and Ticket to Ride could revert to him when a statutory 56-year period of exclusivity ends. So this lawsuit is a year early. It's basically jockeying for position, I suppose. What's even crazier, according to Forbes, is the lawsuit was prompted in part by a comment from Sony ATV's chief Marty Bandier to Lee Eastman, who's Paul McCartney's attorney, at a Billy Joel concert. It's a pissing contest at the highest level. I absolutely love it.
So, Luke, do you think there's any chance that Lee Eastman has any relation to Paul's first wife, Linda McCartney, who was an Eastman/Eastman Kodak?
Yes, it in fact does. Linda McCartney is actually the brother of Lee Eastman and the son of the Lee Eastman Sr., who was Paul McCartney's first business manager starting right around the time of the breakup of the Beatles.
Okay, and that's amazing because the great thing about Linda, as most people don't know, is she is from that Eastman Kodak family. So she came in with her own money, which had to be very securing for Paul McCartney, being a Beatle and knowing that she wasn't there for the fame or the money.
100%.
Everybody drinks.
Some movers and shakers this week, all around the business. Brian Mead is leaving his post as the head of In Grooves to join Benji Rogers' Pledge Music as the head of artist relations.
The Academy of Country Music is moving from its home at the MGM Grand to our good friend Sid Greenfig's T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. That comes down on April 2nd to air.
Greg Nadell was upped at Elektra Records. It was announced that Greg, whose signings include Zac Brown Band, Sturgill Simpson, he's the guy who put the deal together with super producer Dave Cobb. It was announced by Atlantic Elektra chairman Craig Kallman that Greg would assume the role of president at Elektra. He's basically been running that company for the better part of the last 2 years. Big congrats for Greg for a long overdue title change.
And finally, closing out the news this week, a low note. The industry lost a giant this week. HK Management's Howard Kaufman died at 79 years old. Kaufman was a longtime associate of Irving Azoff and helped guide the careers of Aerosmith, Jimmy Buffett, Lenny Kravitz, Steely Dan, and so many more. Irving had a very touching quote about Kaufman. He always wants to work till the end, and I'm glad he got his wish. It was a tragic loss for our industry, and he will be missed by me as well as scores of others he touched. Great words from Ring Azoff. Rest in peace, Howard. Our thoughts are with the Coffin family. It's a big loss for the industry, Luke.
It is indeed. That's it for the news.
On February 1st at 9 p.m., it's the biggest party in Pollstar history. Get ready for Let's Drink 5, live at Exchange LA, 618 South Street in LA. The event of the year during Pollstar Live. The event that you cannot miss. Dancing, cocktails, DJs, and more. Let's Drink 5, February 1st, live at Exchange LA during Pollstar Live, 618 South Spring Street. Hosted by Emporium Presents Exchange LA, Access Event Solutions, Niederlander, Ticketfly, Hub International, Works Entertainment, and BYP, Bill Young Productions. RSVP now at Ticketfly.com or RSVP at EmporiumPresents.com.
Let's jump into some Promoter 101 tweets from the past week. This is the part of the podcast where we break down the musings of Dan on Twitter. If you're not following Dan, please check him out on @TheJew on Twitter. When management insists on using an ad method, it's impossible to read who the artist actually is you're trying to promote.
Sometimes the creative just gets way too far out of the box. You need to be able to express the basic show information in an ad. Simply the act, the date, and the venue, and hopefully a call to action on how to buy the ticket.
When it takes a venue 8 days to respond to an avail request.
Yeah, I thought you might like this one, Luke. There is no excuse for this at all. It's just lazy. By the time the venue responded to me, I'd already confirmed another venue and set an on-sale date and set up marketing. And I think we can go ahead and reveal this was actually one of your acts too, Luke, huh?
It was. We'll be playing another show in the San Diego market. We won't say what the venue was in this particular instance, but it was a frustrating example where, in fact, actually our agent had reached out to the venue to pull the avail direct, hadn't heard from him. We looped you into the process. You reached out. It took 8 days. So this is probably more collectively like 20 days before he actually sent an avail back. It's pretty disappointing when a venue just can't respond in a timely fashion to something as simply as looking at a calendar.
Well, I know our friend at that venue actually listens to the podcast and has reached out to me since I made the tweet. So, maybe it's a learning lesson and maybe just didn't want the show. Although, because we have the other markets of the tour on sale already, I can tell you that this is going to be a date that actually sells out that market. So I think an opportunity lost.
I would agree. When you clear a 9th hold to confirm a date.
I have sometimes cleared a 7th hold, sometimes even an 8th before. But when Granger Smith challenged to clear the Crystal Ballroom, we were a 9th hold this week. I was pleasantly surprised to see that we were able to clear the date. And not to be outdone, Andrea Johnson replied to my post almost immediately that she had cleared a 20th hold at Red Rocks Amphitheater. Just incredible, 20 deep. Well done, AJ.
Hey, it's Elliot Lefkoe, promoter from Golden Voice in Los Angeles, and I'll be talking to Dan, Promoter 101 from Canadian Music Week on April 19th. So sharpen your skates and smell the ice. We'll be rocking on that day.
This podcast's featured interview is one of the most interesting people on the face of this planet. Beyond managing the careers of Teddy Pendergrass, Groucho Marx, Emeril Lagasse, and Alice Cooper, he's dated some of the most beautiful women in the world. He calls Mike Myers and Michael Douglas close friends, and he has a personal relationship with the Dalai Lama. We could go on for days about the story about this man, but let's get into it. Here's Dan's interview with Supermensch himself, Mr. Shep Gordon, recorded at Shep's home on a beach in Maui.
An amazing Promoter 101 from Maui today. We're at the Supermensch's house himself, Shep Gordon.
Aloha, welcome to Maui.
Thank you for taking time and having us in your
my
home.
Pleasure. Nice to have you all here. Beautiful day in Maui. Whales are jumping. For those of you who can't see it, this is the moment they're sort of having their babies and getting ready to have more babies. Good time in whale life.
This is a great way to start the year. Just can't believe you get to do this every day. Just come out and watch the water. This is the dream come true.
So lucky. Still, I pinch myself every day still.
So the book just came out, and it's doing very well. New York bestseller list, right?
It got picked this weekend by the New York Post as the most unnoticed book of the year.
Most unnoticed. That's always a good pat in the back.
It's pretty cool. But really proud. I mean, amazing. You open up the middle page of the Post, and there's a big picture of the book, and it says 20 best books of 2016.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. You're used to being behind the scenes. How is having the movie and now the book turned you into a little bit of a celebrity?
Yeah,
How does that feel? Like, instead of being the guy behind the guy, now you're kind of the guy.
I mean, it's changed the rhythm of my time a little bit, but you wake up in the morning, you do what you do, and you go to sleep. So this is just another day, a little different journey, and it definitely is different time management. But I'm not Alice or Bono or any of those people who don't have 1 second of time and have to really make decisions on, am I compassionate? How am I going to live my life? I mean, the first time it happened to me was, and it happens rarely, I was walking to Tribeca Film Festival in New York. It was right when the documentary came out, and I multitask almost all the time. So walking for me is a great exercise. I love walking because I can think. So I'm always aware of where I am, but I'm in my brain and I'm going somewhere when I'm walking. And all of a sudden I heard Mr. Gordon, which is weird in my life, in my rhythm at that point in my life. So I turned around, it was an Afro-American middle-aged lady, and she said, I work at CNN, I just screened your movie, and that you have a minute. And I was on my way. Michael Douglas was interviewing me at Tribeca Film Festival, and I really didn't have a minute, which is unusual, again, for me. So I said, I'm really sorry, my lord. She said, I had a strange upbringing as a kid, and I'm trying to break into show business, and I see in the movie that you had a similar thing, and I'd really love to talk to you about it. And I felt horrible because I couldn't give her the time. And when I got to Tribeca, I got up on stage, and I said to Michael, let me tell you what just happened to me. I said, I've been managing people a lot of years, and I'm the guy who stops that woman from talking to the artist. I'm the guy with the hand that's in her face. I've never really thought about...
You're the border to entry.
Yeah, I've never really thought about what does that do to you on a human level. I said, if you're walking and you see a guy in a wheelchair and it's going to make his day to tell you, oh, I met your father once, or, it's nothing earth-changing to you, but how does it feel to have to walk by him and have someone like me put the hand up and be completely uncompassionate? That was the most pain for him in the first few years, but he's become a little hardened to it, and he accepts that, and he tries to work it out in different ways. He has children he puts a lot of love into. So I haven't hit that point. I still can deal with the people who reach out to me. So I'm sort of enjoying it. It's been really nice to be able to share and be able to respond to them. At times it gets a little overwhelming, but for me it's really nice.
So how does that pitch come together when Mike Myers picks up the phone and says, I want to do your life?
Yeah, no, it happened a different way. Mike, it's funny, we're sitting at the table that we always had dinner with Mike and I, and we'd have this game for years. He would come in, and written on his hand would be names, and we'd finish dinner, and he'd go, okay, Albert Finney. Oh, yeah, Albert, he came over when I opened Don Jose. And we never, even if we hit one that I didn't have a story for, I made up the story. And he would
never let the truth get in the way of a good story, right?
And he would always say to me, we got to put this on film. And my reaction was basically what the opening question you came up with, which was, why would I want to do that and risk having to deal with fame when there's not many survivors? And I had a medical emergency, and I ended up in the hospital, and I flatlined a couple of times, but I didn't know it. And the first phone call I got in the room, I'm still groggy on morphine, is Mike Myers, and wow, I heard what happened. You okay? And I said, yeah, I'm going to be okay. And I was in the room alone and sort of feeling a little sorry for myself. I've just woken up. They told me I almost died twice. There's nobody in the room with me. And he said, so you ready to do the movie now? And the answer was yes.
So there's a gap of a couple of years between the book and the movie. Did it give you a chance to revise or change things that you particularly decided you wanted to add, or things that you didn't want in there?
What happened is about maybe 6 months after the movie came out, there was a chef in L.A., Roy Choi. We were having a professional love affair. He had called me up once and he said, listen, I know you're retired. Never met you, but I just want you to know my name's Roy Choi. I'm a chef in L.A. I have a thing called Kogi Truck. You will be the only person that ever manages me, and if you don't want to manage, that's fine. I'll never get another person, but I want you to know that I'm here. And I had never heard of Kogi or Roy, and I sort of looked it up and saw what he was doing, and I always felt I had helped launch an artist class that had sort of lost track of what their mission was. They were all making $100 dinners only. They were only cooking for rich people. All the celebrity chefs. You couldn't get an Emerald meal for under $100. You couldn't get it then. So I felt like I helped create this monster when there's so much hunger in the world. And that's what they do, is feed people. And when I read about Roy, I said, ooh, this could put compassion into the art form. So I went to L.A., I met with him, we started working together, and he had a book come out published by Anthony Bourdain. So I happened to be in New York when the book came out, and they did a party in Brooklyn. I went to the party, and Anthony walked up to me and he said, are you Shep? And I said, yeah. He said, I want to do a book with you. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, I have a book imprint at HarperCollins, and I wouldn't have it if it wasn't for you.
Well, what a compliment.
It was wild, but it's really funny. It's so Anthony. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, you made Emerald famous, and I became famous by beating up Emerald. Which I thought was like, so great. And
touche, motherfucker.
Yeah, and after the movie came out, there was an amazing amount of people treating me like a guru. I'm the same asshole when I look in the mirror that I was when I was 15. I don't mean that in a bad way, but, I have so much self-worth issues, and I got all this stuff that every Jewish adolescent has.
Very familiar with this.
Yeah. So it was really weird to me. What are they seeing in me? People were flying in. Rick Rubin flew in. Significant people who had done significant things in their lives. And I couldn't figure out what, I would ask her, what do you think was in my life that can add to your life? And nobody really came up with real answers. So.
Rolling with the Dalai Lama doesn't hurt.
Yeah, but those are all superficial ones. It's how do you get to the place where you want to, or I never sat down and I want to be with the Dalai Lama. To me, it was all fate. It was, I wake up in the morning, I do what I do. I know I'm always attracted to powerful, successful people. I'm a groupie very much in that way. I had dinner last night with Barry Sheck, who started the Innocence Project, got 350 people out of jail. Those are the kind of people that, I'll drive miles to get to sit next to and just to feel they've changed the world.
So as you play with the box of Zoots,
yes.
You've been open about drugs and your connection to them before you started managing acts and getting to L.A. And
Anthony gave me the perfect name. When I would say drug dealer, it came off my mouth hard. It was like, and he interviewed me in New York, and he said, so I understand you're in the pharmaceutical industry. So that's what I say now. I was in the pharmaceutical industry before.
So you've always been very comfortable and open with marijuana is a big part of your life.
Yeah.
The last time we were together, I couldn't finish speaking because I lost track. What you smoke is too powerful.
I wake up in the morning, I smoke all day. But it is a crutch. I view it as a very safe crutch. And when I don't smoke, like if I'll go overseas and I don't take, I'm not as happy as I am when I smoke. I'm okay. I can live without it. But the quality of, for me anyway, I like being happy. So I use it as a tool to get to where I want to go. I don't encourage other people to use it. It is a crutch. I'm not the strongest guy in the world, but I have found a way to get myself to a place that I'm really happy with and I don't hurt anyone.
Well, it seems like the world's standpoint, at least America's, has changed quite greatly as they're legalizing it for medical and now recreational in a lot of states.
Yeah. I think the medical applications are the real significant ones. The veterans, it's just criminals. They're not given access to it. It's criminal that you can drink 5 bottles of liquor and you smoke a joint and you go to jail. To me, that's criminal, not smoking the joint. And when you see a Sanjay Gupta show and you see a kid who's having 150 convulsions and goes down to 1 maybe, how do you deny him? It makes no sense to me. But for me, I love it. I don't think I would have ever had the career I had without smoking, because that's my rhythm for creating. Whether it's the best or the worst way to get to it, I don't know, but it's my way. I get happy and then I can time travel, and I think of these insane things that don't always work, but they're so out of the box that Alice has never smoked a joint in his life. Alice Cooper has been my client 40 years.
So you guys really are the yin and yang, huh?
But he would say to me, early on, he would come in and he never, ever puts me down for anything I do. I don't put him down, but, he'd stay up at my house and I'd wake up at 7 in the morning and I'm smoking joints and on the phone and do it. And one day he said to me, I don't get it. He said, how do you smoke all that grass and get all the work done? And I said, no, you don't get it. If I didn't smoke the bread, you think I could do this stupid fucking nonsense? If I was straight.
It's definitely the weed out. That's awesome. Can we talk about the famous T-shirt?
Mm-hmm.
It's well photographed. It's in the movie.
Interesting you bring it up because it's
fond of it.
Well, no. It's been really bizarre. For the T-shirt he's talking about said no head, no backstage pass, and the derivation of it was I was on the road with Alice. I was a young man. We were very short-staffed. We weren't making a lot of money. I was working 20 hours a day. It was pre-AIDS. It was a free sex time, and there were groupies all around all the time.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. but what I would see was, a guy in the band would meet a girl. I love you, 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 I love you. And the bus would leave at 5, and he wouldn't even know her name, and they'd been in bed. And I wanted the sex, but I didn't want it. Lying doesn't work for me. The concept of like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, and I know I'm never going to see her again, it didn't work for me. But I was getting hornier and hornier. So I said, let me deal with myself like I would with my artist. How do I get from point A to point B? What do I want? I want some head. How do I be honest about it? Wear a T-shirt. No. They want to get to every groupie wants the lead singer or the guitar player. That's what they want. If they have to give me a little head to get through to the singer or the guitar player, sort of okay.
It's a different kind of commission, but it works.
So for me, trying to be honest, I never thought of it as taking advantage, because to me it was an honest thing. It wasn't like, I love you, I love you, I love you, suck my dick, and I'll never see you again. It was, here it is.
So did it work?
Yeah, it worked a lot.
Okay.
And it worked in all my conversations until the election. And every time since the election it's been brought up, I have a wave of feminists who are so angry they want to kill me.
Not forcing you to do it. They don't have to be backstage.
The climate has changed so much since the election. It happened on Summit at Sea. The first year at Summit at Sea, there were about 30 girls waiting after my speech to say, can I get a backstage pass? This year at Summit at Sea, I was accosted everywhere I went by how disgusting you are. I can't, very bizarre.
Where did those other girls go?
That's a radical shift. That's a serious, for the shift to be that far low on the feeding chain, we're living in some very strange times about to come up, I think. Summit at Sea has this communication thing, and I got 4 or 5 guys said to me, I'd love to talk to you about the reaction from the women. We have girls who are still freaking out. And I mean, it really created a little bit of a storm. For 3 years when I would say it got laughs. And people, I think, took it the way I meant it rather than taking it the way they meant it. Because I think sort of kind of innocent, if you go up to someone and honest with them, there was no pressure, there was no...
So when you met Sharon Stone, were you wearing the shirt?
I was not wearing the shirt. I almost had better than the shirt because I was standing next to Michael Douglas. In this beautiful place owned by Johnny Bugazzi in the south of France. It's actually a funny story. I don't know if I told the story in the book. The night before was the premiere of Total Recall, which was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sharon. And they hired the Gypsy Kings, who I managed, to play the party for the premiere. So it was at the Hotel du Cap, which is on the south of France, very beautiful. And not to drop too many names, but I went with Mick Jagger, Roman Polanski, and Michael Douglas. And we're sitting there.
Please keep dropping names. It's fucking awesome.
I was sitting there, and into the room comes Arnold and Sharon. And she is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, unbelievable that night. Always, but that night, I thought the first time I had ever seen her, the story turns out to be different. And I remember I hit Michael like this, and I said, you guys are on your own because I'm leaving with her. And I got up, and I tried to get to her, and I couldn't get to her, and I tried 3 or 4 times, and I had someone invite her backstage to meet the Gypsy Kings, figuring then I'd have an opportunity. She didn't come back. So I never met her. And all night long, the guys were like beating the shit out of me. How are you still here? Oh, yeah. So the next day, I was staying at the Du Cap. Michael was staying at this house next to it. I go to the house. I'm sitting with Michael at the pool, and I see behind his head Sharon walking up. Oh, my God, I got real like, holy shit. So she comes walking up. Hi, Michael. And hi. Mike says, I'd like to meet my friend Shep. Oh, hi, Shep. Gives me a hug. She said, what a beautiful home. And I say, would you like me to take you around and give you a little tour? Like I owned it. And she said yes, and I did, and we ended up being together for the rest of the time. Then we went.
Must have been an amazing tour you gave.
It was amazing. Then we went to Texas. I had Luther playing in Dallas, so we flew to Dallas, stayed at my friend's hotel there. And at one point she said to me, so you're kidding, right? Did you think you just met me? And I said, what do you mean? She said, you went out with my roommate for like 3 months. You're kidding? She said, yeah, we all went to England together.
So you knew her.
And, oops. Oops.
Somehow she must have gotten past it.
Yeah, we got past it. Angela, who is still friendly, she was the girl, the Afro-American girl who, you guys are too young, but she used to give out the Oscars on the broadcast. There would be always a gorgeous girl with a lot of curves. And she was that for about 4 or 5 years. Angela Robinson.
So do you have any unfamous friends?
Yeah, plenty. I'm very attracted to fame and power, so I sort of work at it. For me, it's exciting, it's interesting, and it usually has a payoff. Times are a little different now. Now you become famous because you're famous. In those days, you became famous because you had perfected a skill or you were the best at what you did. So normally, if someone became famous, they had really accomplished an amazing amount of stuff in their lives, and those are the people I like to be around. So it was an easy path in, and it always helped my clients, and it's the world that I lived in. So, but I still find even today, I'll get a lot of random calls here, and if I Google someone and I see that they've done something really exciting in life, not money, but something that's really worthwhile, I try and really make time.
No, I think that's very true. I think we've, as promoters, have learned that the famous people, the better the relationships are, the longer they last, and the more attention that's given.
Yeah.
A la spending time with the band after the show in Hawaii. Jason had brought up, last year you mentioned setting up a tour and setting up the restaurant. You set them up, and then you try to let them go. And how do they differ, and how are they similar?
Tours and restaurants?
Yeah, we're talking about building the Alice tour, and once you set it up, and then it goes.
Yeah.
In the restaurant, you set it up.
It's the same basic thing. Restaurants are tougher because sourcing problems, labor is, very rarely on a rock and roll tour do you change labor. You may change between tours, but it's rare to have someone quit or be fired on a tour. You may have one go or something. I just opened a new restaurant down the road here. We hired 150% of what we needed. By the first week, we were 25% short of what we needed. And that's the nature of a restaurant. It's unskilled workers who aren't passionate. They're there to do something else for the most part, especially in islands like this. There's surfers there, so there's no connection. Whereas in rock and roll, there's usually some strong passion that brings them to it.
How many restaurants do you have?
I only have a couple now. I have 2 now.
And how does that come about? Does a space strike you, or does a theme, or?
No, all random. It's always by the chef. I'm an artist person, so I made movies because of directors. I do this is with Roy Yamaguchi. Roy and I have been partners, and he has his own 30 restaurants, but we did the Outback restaurants in Hawaii together, the franchisee. Now we're doing this restaurant together as partners. We made sake together, and I managed them when he was a chef, when I was managing chefs.
You made sake together.
We made sake together. For me, every business I've ever been in is artist-orientated. So what I enjoy doing is putting a picture frame around an artist. If they're a chef, it's a restaurant or goods or stuff. If it's a musician, it's tours or records. But the part that I enjoy is figuring out how to get them to their audience without compromising their message and enhancing it, which gets back to the Lance Armstrong thing of how do you enhance the message without changing it.
Where do you come down on the hot versus cold sake?
There is none. It's only cold.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
We were having this discussion the other night in Honolulu.
Yeah, not
That's
even
where
a
David
discussion.
came in.
Yeah, it's only cold. It's not even a discussion. Yeah. Hot was started during the war after the Japanese rice fields were devastated and they couldn't get quality rice. And that's when hot came in. And it was mostly the servicemen, and then they brought it back to America. To a Japanese person, a sake maker, you say hot, you're out of the room. Yeah, get out of here. Yeah. When you get to the cold sake, you have real flavor characteristics. You can really tell stuff from it. Hot sake is basically just hot sake. I mean, I've drank plenty of it, so I'm not, but it's a different experience. It's sort of like drinking a cheap whiskey out of the bottle with a straw or sipping a really good one, and you can get fucked up on either one. When I was making sake, I used to cringe when I would be sitting with someone and they'd order the hot sake. And, I never wanted to go into the speech because it's sort of kind of embarrassing and most people don't care. But it would just be like, like a cringe. What I found for me was I had always thought, it's very personal stuff, but I had always thought my life was sort of guided by my mother's anger. So none of it ever made sense to me. She would throw the Dalai Lama out of the house for being barefoot. So it never really made sense to me, these choices that I made. Like the kids I adopted, she would never even let in the house. It would be some bigoted, weird comment under the level,
So there's an adjustment and compensation for that.
So as I was doing the book, I did the first pass, didn't work at all. And then I read Norman Lear's book, and he talked about his relationship with his father, which was really horrible. His dad went to jail when he was a young man. But it started me thinking about my father. And I started thinking about, my dad would have made these choices. But I always thought of my dad as the weak. I loved him more than anything more than anybody could love anybody. I love my father, but I always thought him as a very weak man. I almost had sympathy for him. A lot of the love was almost sympathy. He didn't have friends. He never went out. He never did anything on his own. He didn't drive. He had no life. It appeared to me, and I saw that as weakness, that my mother was dominating him. And when I started to think about it, I started to go back into the scrapbooks I had from when he passed away. They sent everything. I found this unbelievably robust human who was a handball champion, who had cards printed up that said Ben Gordon available for parties for girls anytime, day or night.
So he had his own T-shirt.
He had his own, wild. But when I tell you that, not a glimpse of it, and I realized that he gave up everything in his life, including living with my mother, which wasn't easy, to take care of me and my brother. He's the strongest man I ever met in my life, and did it without ever talking about it. The only conversations we ever had were, I would say to him, how can you let her do this to us? And he would say, would you like me to leave you alone with her? And that would stop the conversation. Then I understood all my choices, because they were the choices he would have made. It's very hard, I think, as an American capitalist, to think about compassion as a strength. We think of it as a weakness. Kindness is thought of in the business community in America today as a weakness, not as a strength. So none of it ever made sense to me. And once I clicked on my dad, everything I did in my life made real sense to me and made me proud that I did it out of strength and not out of weakness, if that makes any sense.
Your life sources seem to play a big part of everything, comfort and how you live. Obviously, this view is amazing, and the fact that you get to do this every day. And I'm not sure if the podcast is picking up the sound of the waves crashing in, but we're sitting outside looking at...
No, I had a really funny thing. Rick Rubin came here, and I hadn't seen him in 30 years, and it was really great. When he finished, he said, can I play you this new record I'm working on? And I said, listen, I'm a little embarrassed, but I don't have anything to play music on here. And he said, what? And I said, just stop and listen to the ocean and the wind. If I put on music, I feel like I'm cheating myself. And I got this beautiful email. I told this story on PBS, and I got a beautiful email from an elder in Hawaii saying, Mr. Gordon, I listened to your podcast, and I want you to know there's a Hawaiian word named Pana, P-A-N-A. Pana means the heartbeat of the earth. And what you're listening to and are so attracted by is the heartbeat of Maui.
That's incredible.
It's really beautiful.
So part of those life decisions is you golf almost every day, right?
Yeah.
But
but...
You don't keep score, too, right?
No.
And
I don't like winners and losers. I like winners and winners. I don't keep score. I don't bet. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm happy to be... Most of the people I play with bet, and I'm happy for them, and I love the dialogue, and I love, beating each other up, not seriously. But for me, it takes the edge off. I don't want to beat anybody. I don't want to lose to anybody. I want to just be.
So you do 9 or 18 every day?
Not usually 6 or 11.
Who's keeping score? What's the difference? Okay, so this year Alice did something different. He went out this summer and played with the Vampires.
Yeah, it was really fun.
And the original Vampires were...
Sunday night, New Year's Eve, he played with Jim Carrey here.
Didn't realize Jim Carrey rocked a band.
Which was so great. Jim was unbelievable. He's like Johnny. He started in a band in Toronto. I didn't know that. He was sensational. I mean, if you go online, it's all over online. Just Google Jim Carrey, New Year's with Alice, and you'll see he's really good. And
so what does he play?
He sings, lead singer. Him and Alice did No More Mr. Nice Guy and School's Out Together. We had a great New Year's. We had Fergie and Linda Carter, Wonder Woman, who did It's Only Rock and Roll together. And we had Mike McDonald, Dave Mason, Pat Simmons, who did 4 or 5 songs together. We had Steven Tyler, who did 5 on his own. It's a benefit for the Maui Food Bank. And
the most random collection of celebrities. I mean,
every year we've had Michael Bolton, we've had Santana. People just show up. Fergie just showed up. Didn't even know she was in town. Walked in. I saw her. I said, and Linda Carter was on stage. I said, "Come on, go sing with Linda." And she gave her a mic. And what's she singing? I don't know. But we raised our 1,000th meal for the Maui Food Bank.
Oh, that's incredible.
1 million meals on an island of 125,000. So we're all very proud of it.
That's fascinating.
We've had the same people since we started 9 years ago. Steve Tyler's done everyone. Michael McDonald's done everyone. Alice has done everyone. Pat Simmons has done everyone. And then James Hetfield jumped in 1 year. Sammy Hagar last year. Everybody does it free. Mike McDonald bought 12 tickets this year, $7,000, and played for free. Maui is a unique community. You'll find if you talk to people who live here on Maui who come from the entertainment community, they are so grateful to be on Maui. It's completely the opposite of them living on the mainland. We're entertained. Come see my beautiful house. If you talk to a Willie Nelson or you talk to Mick Fleetwood, the first thing they'll tell you is how thankful they are to be on Maui. Like, really thankful. And it's a beautiful thing. It really makes the community, all those walls break down. There's no best table in Maui. There's no worst table. Steve Tyler comes, plays my benefit first, gets in a car, drives to Lahaina, plays Mick Fleetwood's benefit. Jim Carrey did the same. There's no ego, no. Can you imagine Steve Tyler going on first? You know, that's wild. Yeah.
There's a nice video going around YouTube right now of some street performer playing one of the Aerosmith songs as he's walking by and jumps in and sings with him.
Oh, yeah, he's like that. He's got a great heart, Steve.
So how did the vampire thing come back together?
It started with Johnny performing with Alice in L.A. We did a tribute. We never really, in doing Alice shows, we always killed Alice, and then he came back to life for School's Out. But we never dealt with where does Alice go when he dies. We've done the same thing.
Golf for Heaven?
Years. No, so he had the Hollywood Vampires, which was a drinking club at the Roxy. I mean, at the place next to the Roxy.
Oh, the Rainbow?
Rainbow, thank you. And they
so there's Mickey Dolenz and
Mickey
his Lennon.
Dolenz, Keith Moon, John Lennon, Harry Nilsson. They used to meet there every night. Whoever was in town would meet there. So when we were talking about it, I said, where would you go? You'd go right back to the Rainbow, to the Hollywood Vampires. Let's go to a cemetery on stage and do a tribute. You're dead. You've been executed. Where would you wake up? You'd wake up with the guys in heaven or hell, whichever place you go. So that's what we do.
So that's the tombstones that reveal during the show now.
Yeah, so those were the tombstones. We asked Johnny to come play with us and said, why don't you come play on these 4 songs because you know them. He played on them, and after the show he asked me, he said, what's this all about? And we told him the story of the vampires, and he said, we got to do this as a documentary. This is the greatest thing ever. That's where we started. We started as a documentary and called up Bob Ezrin, and he came in and produced what was to be the soundtrack for the documentary, but we never got. Johnny's sometimes slow. He's got a full plate.
And just for the podcast listeners, Johnny Depp is the Johnny.
Who's the greatest guy and a great guitar player. And
can he play?
Oh, yeah, he really plays. And at some point we said, why don't we take this on the road? You know, Joe Perry was living at Johnny Depp's, so he came in to work on the album.
Just crashing.
So we said, let's take it on the road. And I went out and I got a gigantic offer to headline Rock in Rio in Brazil as their first show for a gigantic sum of money and the perfect place to go. We didn't have to sell tickets. We could have fun. 100,000 people. So off we went, and everybody enjoyed it. So
how did that lineup come together? I mean, that's an incredible lineup.
You know, it was Alice and Johnny to start with, and Joe Perry jumped in because he was living there. And then we were looking for a drummer, and Matt had played a little bit on the record, so he came in, and off we go. And it's interchangeable. Who knows what the next wave of this thing will be. But Alice and Johnny will be there always, and I believe Joe. And then we'll just add around it.
I think Mickey Dolenz somewhere is raising his hand waiting to be called back up.
I know. I know. We called Mickey, too. We're going to try and figure that out. I love Mickey. I mean, we've all stayed friendly with him.
And they had a big year last year. It was a Big Monkeys album that came out.
They had a really big year. As well they should. Great guy.
It's very cool. So the Celebrity Chef thing, we can't not talk about it. It's like those guys all credit you for creating that genre. And every time you walk in a supermarket and see Emerald Seasoning, it's like...
Yeah, I never think of myself as creating. I think of myself as putting a face on a wave. What I think I'm really good at is seeing these waves and then attaching faces to the waves. So some of the waves are generational. Alice was, anger towards parents is a generational wave. It always exists. Every generation has faces. Elvis Presley was a face. He couldn't show his hips on the Ed Sullivan Show. Sinatra was one. He got in fights. There's always a face that the parents say, you better not get that guy's music. Then it became rap music for guys like me. I remember walking past my kid's room hearing rap the first time and opening the door and saying, get this shit out of my house. And as I said it, I realized, fuck, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. So with the chefs, it was really simple to me. I was mentored by a great chef. Through him, I got to meet the chef community, realized that they weren't making any money at all. I mean, literally, Wolfgang was the highest paid guy at $80,000 a year. Nobody had 2 restaurants.
What year is this roughly?
This is 91.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Emerald had 1 restaurant. Nobu had 1 restaurant. Wolf had 1 restaurant. None of them had 2 restaurants, and none of them made any money outside of their restaurants. Yet the demand to get into Spago or Le Cirque or Charlie Trotter was beyond any demand that you ever saw in your life. If you were wealthy, you could buy your way into the 50-yard line of the Super Bowl that morning. You could be in the front row of a Broadway play. You could not buy your way into Spago. There was no highway to buy in. So the demand was there. To me, it was so clear that all I had to do was build highways to the audience. What I told the guys was Michael Jackson, if there hadn't been records, radio stations, TV, Michael Jackson would be a wandering minstrel. You guys are wandering minstrels, and you're one little restaurant feeding 150 people a night. You have to get on TV so they can turn you on. You have to have products in stores so they can buy and take you home. You have to build highways to your audience. And I know how to do that, so I'll do that and then have a good time. So I did it all pro bono. I never charged any of the guys.
So even Emerald's like seasoning stuff. That's
the only business I did. The way I got the Food Network to start was by promising that all the artists would work for free for 5 years. No talent costs whatsoever. But I got them to give a commercial in each show that the artist could control. So we then had to create products for that commercial.
So you could bring in revenue and monetize it.
Yeah. So I deal with all my chefs. You know, everything's pro bono, but if we create a project and I have to fund the creation of it, which I did, then we go 50-50 on the product.
So you're still involved then?
Yeah, yeah.
Seems like that might have paid off.
Yeah, worked out well. I mean, now you look at these guys, you know, Emerald comes here on a private plane. It's insane, but I'm happy for them. They're great artists.
And you retired from the food side of the chef world.
I retired from really everything other than Alice.
And Alice is just, it's in your blood.
It's a body part. It's like an arm. I gave the commencement speech at the Culinary Institute this year. It was the first 4-year graduating class. And basically what I said to him was, you know, I'm really happy I helped to build a path where you can now go out and cook for rich people. But when you leave your restaurant, your hotel, when you look to the left and you look to the right, they're starving people. And if you think we all work this fucking hard for you to only serve $100 meals, you got a second guess coming. And that's what Roy Choi embodies. His mission is to feed people who are hungry, quality food at an affordable price. I think in a very unconscious way, he's starting to change the fabric. About 6 months ago, I got a video of a food kitchen in, I think it's St. Louis, that's completely changed the model of a food kitchen. You come in, a maitre d' seats you, you get a menu, you're served 3 courses, you pick what you're going to eat, someone serves it to you, you have a tablecloth, a napkin. These are homeless people, and they train people in the restaurant who are homeless to do these jobs so they can go off and get jobs. It's just a beautiful model. It gives dignity back to the people who can't afford the food. It gives them dignity in front of their children, because most of the people come in with children. And it gives them a chance to find a life, you know, and do it for others. So I think it's Roy's influence, even if not directly. You know, it's Roy, it's Jamie Oliver. There's a couple of guys around the world who have really focused on it, and it's really beautiful, and it's what it's needed, you know. It's the we are the world of the food world. We need guys who focus that way.
Jamie Oliver did really well with his TV show, going into schools and resetting up their food programs. It's definitely something solid out there.
He was the first one to really focus on it.
So as this podcast will air, you're about to do Pollstar Live as the keynote with Alice and Danny Zalesko. What are you guys going to be talking about?
I have no idea.
Well, let's hope Danny does.
But I love the title we came up with, which was Alice Cooper and Shep Gordon, a 47-year conversation interpreted by Danny Zalesko.
Continued on next ticket stub.
The concept of Danny interpreting it is, for those of you who don't know, Danny is about as far out as you could possibly get.
Sure, it'll be fun. I want to thank you for taking time and talking to us and letting us to your beautiful
Maui.
home.
Come back soon.
Thank you so much.
Aloha. Nice to meet you all.
That was incredible. A huge thanks to Shep for sharing some time with Dan. It's a great opportunity to mention that Shep is going to be doing the keynote session at Pollstar Live with Alice Cooper and Danny Zalesko next week. For those of you registered for the conference, do not miss it. And what a great transition we did there, Dan. Pollstar Live is next week, January 30th to February 2nd at the JW Marriott in downtown Los Angeles, just around the corner.
Hi, this is Steve Martin, not the actor, not the PR guy, the agent from APA. I'll be on Dan Steinberg's perpendicular, fantastic, psychedelic Promoter 101 podcast from South by Southwest, Thursday, March 16th.
We invited Pollstar's CEO, Gary Smith, to the podcast to preview next week's conference.
Promoter 101, we've got the exclusive insight on what's coming to Pollstar Live. We're joined by Gary Smith from Pollstar. Gary, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
So Pollstar's coming up back in LA at LA Live. It seems like the biggest conference of the year for entertainment industry. You got to be excited about what's coming up this year.
Well, it is nice to be back in LA. I think we found that by moving the conference around, it kept it interesting and it kind of freshened it up. Then, of course, we went to San Francisco and we grew it a little bit more again. So actually, it was fortunate to be able to go from city to city and have the conference continue to expand. At the same time, with the music base that's in Los Angeles, we really did need to be back in L.A. And the response, I mean, the registrations are up. We will undoubtedly have another record attendance.
People are coming and the word is out. It seems a little bit like Pollstar and Billboard are emulating the NFL. No conferences in L.A. for years, and then suddenly everybody's coming back to L.A., just like the Rams and the Chargers moving back to L.A.
As far as us being back in L.A. and as far as the hang goes, again, the property, the JW Marriott, it really facilitates the crowd and the combination of lobby bars. There's the one central area where people hang out, especially in the daytime, and then, of course, the mixing room, which is the bar that's open late at night, including all the outdoor area. So having all that kind of smooth space right next to the quad of the whole LA Live Center with all the restaurants and everything, I think that is one aspect of that property and our conference that people really enjoy, because there's plenty of room for it and plenty of choices. I mean, there's plenty of things to do in the area, and of course, even as far as people being able to go to the agencies, they still have the opportunities to, it's a little bit of a trek across town, which some people don't like. Some of the agents don't like to have to trek across town to get to downtown, and the people that are...
Yeah, the agents never like anything. Enough of that. Don't worry about it. I think everybody else is excited about it. Plus, that commute from the award ceremony to the hotel couldn't get any easier.
We're always there banging, trying to be, the favored nations, being in the middle grounds and being the neutral turf for all things going on, live entertainment. But anyway, yeah, the bottom line of being back in L.A. and looking forward to it, we really are. I mean, we're literally relocating the entire staff. We'll have 40 plus, 80% of our staff will be relocating to L.A. by the end of this coming week. And, that's quite a bit of a transition for us. It's not just like a half a dozen people from our office going down there. It's the larger percentage of the staff.
Yeah, you guys are all in and committed to making this cool. And something you guys have done to expand in the last couple of years is you've added production live the day before Pollstar started. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's new. We've always had everything about the concert business entails the elements of production. And when our core audience for years and years and years has been promoters and agents and venues, and then you've got all the peripheral aspects of what's going on in the business, all the support services and so on. So we've always had an element of that, but we really haven't focused on that aspect of the business. But it's such a big part of our business. It's inescapable. And in some ways, it's almost like a different family, a different kind of fraternity for those people that live on the road. You got the venue guys in various markets, but that's their home base. They're not moving around the whole time. Promoters move around a lot more, and agents do a fair amount of traveling. But these guys, their entire lifestyle revolves around being mobile and being on the road. And, of course, the sophistication of productions today is just gotten bigger and bigger, and everything that's related to safety and so on. As the concert business gets bigger and as it gets more sophisticated, everything else gets bigger. So, of course, us addressing this aspect of the business, we just decided it was essentially time for us to devote more energy to it, and we just figured out a way to do it. And whereas the rest of Pollstar Live isn't devoted to one aspect, it's not exclusively just booking and buying talent, for example. We're trying to cover everything in live events. But the production side, and again, the production side has even a wider demographic, because when you talk about live events, you're not talking about concerts exclusively. And as the business changes, it wouldn't matter if it was EDM, which is not new, but now when you talk about the growth of the gaming events, where the gaming competitions are filling arenas, it's just another aspect. And now it's about live events, and it's not exclusively about music. So both for Pollstar Live and from the production side, it's just part of what's happening as the business changes and expands. But anyway, we've been successful with it. We started out with the first year we did it in Nashville, 200-300 people, and I don't know what the attendance will be for production live. But again, the entire first day is devoted.
You've got some real heavy hitters this year, like from Concerts West, Gongaware and Meglin are both coming to speak.
You know, what they're devoted to, especially in terms of handling major tours, and it doesn't matter who the act is, you know, whether it's the Rolling Stones or any other act. I mean, they've been involved in doing concerts of every kind over the years, but you go from doing major tours, and of course they've got on their teams all the people that are involved in production. So where John and Paul aren't necessarily overseeing every aspect of production, they still have to oversee every aspect of a tour, and it's got to be right to be successful. But to have the opportunity for the guys that are involved in the production side to get to bounce stuff off of them, you know, they don't always get to talk to the major agents and the major promoters. You know, the production guys are dealing with other production people often. So I think that brings another element of people in our business together. It also lets people that are there for Pollstar Live who have more of an interest on the production side to participate in that. Likewise, it allows the people that are there on the production side, if they want to stay and be part of the conference, they'll be there for the whole 3 days, even though it's considered to be a separate event, but there's a huge overlap. Most of the registrations for Production Live are from people that are fully registered for the entire conference.
That's very cool, and you clearly have the guys like Stephen Gudis and David Klein, and on the other side of things, Jim Runge and Stuart Ross all coming out to participate in an event that size. So the leaders of the business are definitely coming out, so you see that it's working.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And when you talk about guys like Stuart Ross, I mean, Stuart Ross is another guy that's always at Pollstar Live, so he's another guy that knows everybody. He knows the agents. He knows the venue guys. He knows everybody, and he's going to be there for Pollstar Live regardless. But when it comes to Production Live, that's his area of expertise, and you know, that's just a little closer to home to everything that matters to him. But I think that's the same thing. The other thing, for whatever it's worth, you're not going to necessarily see it this year. But again, when it comes to the production side of the business, it doesn't matter what type of event it is. It doesn't matter if it's music or sports or anything else. I think what you will see with us, with our conference and with our company, with Pollstar itself, there will be more of what we do devoted to the sports aspect. You know, all of the venues that participate in our conference and that subscribe to Pollstar, you know, everything that has to do, particularly indoors, the NBA and the NHL and so on, is as much a part of their business as concerts is a part of their business. So ultimately, for us to cover a broader spectrum of entertainment, I'd be curious, in fact, Steiny, just like you know, someone who isn't doing the mainstream major rock tours, you know, you do every size venue, clubs and small halls, and you do occasionally bigger concerts and so on. But yeah, I think maybe even coming up in the business, you're kind of picking and choosing the types of artists that you work with and selecting certain types of demographics and finding an area where you could be successful without having to butt heads with the biggest promoters on the planet, to find a groove that you could expand on. But it means being aware of every different type of talent out there and every different type of genre. And, you know, a lot of other people out there are involved as indies, and that's, among other things, why they want to go to your session and listen to what you have to say about what's going on in the business. Also, among other things, maybe why your podcast is successful, because you deal with a lot of these issues that a lot of other people in secondary markets and a lot of other indies deal with from day to day. And it's a little different world than if you're AEG or Live Nation.
So since you brought it up, we are doing the podcast live this year for the first time at Pollstar. It's going to be February 2nd at 9:30 in the morning while the roundtable sessions are going on. And we're excited about that. We've got Wayne Forte and Charlie Levy coming out to hang out with me and Luke. We're really excited to have the interaction from the audience for that feedback that we only get online after a session is posted. So to actually have people in the room, that Pollstar is giving us that opportunity to get the questions and the interaction between guys like Wayne while they're being interviewed and Charlie, and have people asking questions about the industry. It's really excited. I'm hoping the students come out for that, and I think it's really going to be a great time.
Not worried about if you're going to attract people or not. That's a given. But, you know, you got the combination of the podcast and a live audience. So does that mean that I can come and stand in the back of the room and boo if I want to?
Usually you sit up front, but if you want to be in back, it's your conference. You go wherever you want. Let's talk about, since we've done the self-promotion plug for the podcast, let's talk about the big ticket item of this one. You guys landed not only Shep Gordon, but Alice Cooper, and in the middle of that, somehow Danny Zalesko's intertwined to walk us through it all. The combo of the three of them, I mean, you see it on a golf course. Clearly, this is going to be an entertaining session.
Well, that's a given, and actually I could just ask you, because you don't know about anybody that's in the audience if they've read the book or seen the documentary. I think anybody, no matter how old they are, knows who Alice Cooper is, of course. Everybody there may or may not know Danny Zalesko, where you get all the familiar names from over the years of our history, from the Bill Grahams and the Chers and Don Laws. And
picking up a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah, and that'll be cool, and because Don does go back to the Bill Graham era, the earliest days, and interestingly enough, and I mentioned that because Danny Zalesko was kind of a protege and was close to Bill Graham, and Bill Graham kind of mentored Danny coming up, who's, of course, much younger. Shep, I don't really know, and so from reading his book, for example, I thought it was fascinating, and I know it was going to be an interesting conversation. Have you read the book by chance?
Well, not only have I read the book, but Shep happens to be our featured guest this week on the podcast, so it'll be a good preview of what's to come.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we were able to sit down with him in Maui this year when Straight No Chaser played over there. He invited us over to the house, and we got to watch the waves come in. And he's got to be maybe the most honest person in the concert industry I've ever met.
That's interesting. He sure exposed himself in his book. I mean, a lot of things that people would consider sensitivities and vulnerabilities, he just had no reservation to expose anything. I'm surprised he didn't go so far as to commit himself to where he could be busted for selling dope many years ago in the early days. But, of course, according to
there's a statute of limitation on that stuff, but he's certainly forthcoming.
Well, in fact, I'm such a food and beverage guy and a bit of a wine aficionado myself. It's another interesting aspect of what he brought to the table, and we're talking about diversifying what it is we do in the business and what we promote. I mean, all the food and wine festivals, it's just becoming another business, and he was the guy that made this happen for all the celebrity chefs. Again, anybody that's read the book knows all this stuff, but for anybody that hasn't, they're going to discover some of these interesting...
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Danny walks through the history of both of them, because that's a whole lot to handle. The two of their careers, that's so much content, there's so much to get through, and Danny knows both those guys inside and out, so I think he's going to be the best guy to possibly walk us through that. That should be a good time.
Oh, yeah. No, he's had a relationship with Alice. He's the perfect guy to do it, not to mention that Danny's a character anyway.
So, closing it all out this year, you got the awards just like every other, and the awards actually came before the conference even.
You're good at your history. We might have done 3 live award shows before we started the conference, and we did do the first Pollstar Awards at Radio City Music Hall.
Well, from the first one to the last one, Gary, it's the best hang in the industry, hanging out at the bar after the awards, so we can't wait to get back to the bar. Thank you so much for taking time. We're looking forward to Pollstar Live and the awards, not to mention Production Live. Thanks so much for being here, my friend, and we'll see you at LA Live in just a couple of weeks.
Hey, this is Charlie from Crescent Ballroom, Stateside Present, and the new Van Buren Theater. I'll be a guest on Promoter 101 when I attend my first Pollstar Live, and hopefully I'm alive to tell you all about it.
And that's it for episode 15 of Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 is going to be on World Tour, doing our live podcast, and it continues soon.
February 2nd, we're going to be recording Promoter 101 at Pollstar Live with special guest Stateside Presents Charlie Levy and Entourage Talents Wayne Forte. You can be sure we have a few surprises up our sleeves for this one as well.
Speaking of Pollstar, don't forget to register for the 5th edition of Let's Drink. Not to be missed. At Pollstar Live, it's the biggest party of the year. This Wednesday, February 1st at Exchange LA. Let's Drink is hosted by Nederlander Concerts, Ticketfly, Access Event Solutions, Bill Young Production, Hub International, and of course, Works Entertainment and Emporium Presents. We'll post a note on our Facebook page with a link to register via Ticketfly.
We're going to be at ILMC at the Royal Garden Hotel in jolly old London town. We're sorry to all our friends in London as we run out of English cliches to deliver each week. March 16th, South by Southwest. Dan's heading to Austin for an interview with APA Head of Music, Steve Martin.
April 19th, Canadian Music Week 2017. We've got Golden Voice's Elliot Lefko and United Talent Agency's Jack Ross. And we'll reintroduce you all to our favorite Canadian game, Dead, Donut, or Canadian.
Next week, we're going to be airing a great interview with Seth and Alma Sheck of Access Event Solutions, as well as an interview with the great manager to the north, Jake Gold. If you have thoughts about the podcast or want us to interview somebody, we want to hear about it. Send an email with ideas to steiny@promoter101.net.
We want to thank everyone that has been sending their emails, either messages through Facebook or tweets or emails to us. The response has been amazing, and we love hearing from you guys. So thanks so much for all your support and getting back to us. And you can follow Luke at WLukePierce on Twitter and me at The Jew as well on Twitter.
Be sure to subscribe to Promoter 101 wherever you listen to podcasts. If you like what we're doing, please tell some friends about us or drop a review. We want to know what you think.
I'm Dan Steinberg, and for my friend Luke Pierce, have a great week.
Hi, this is Jack Ross from UTA. I'm going to be at CMW, live on stage with Steiny for Promoter 101.